and welcome. I'm Jonathan Van Bilsen. Today's forum is to familiarize voters with the people who are seeking to fill the spot that Aaron O'Toole vacated when he retired. We're going to have several candidates who are going to join us today. They're going to talk about some of the issues that are very, very important to all of us residents in Durham. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome them all to our show. First of all, we'll start with the United Party of Canada, Mr. Grant Abraham, followed by the New Democratic Party, Mr. Chris Borja. The People's Party of Canada, Ms. Patricia Conlon. Next, we have an independent, Mr. Pranay Gunte, followed by the Centrist Party of Canada, Mr. Khalid Qureshi, and the Liberal Party of Canada, Mr. Robert Rock. Unfortunately, Mr. Kevin McKenzie of the Green Party, Mr. Jamil Javani of the Conservative Party, and Mr. Adam Smith of the Rhinoceros Party were unable to attend. We did offer them an opportunity to send us a video message, which will be played at the end of this forum. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. As I said, we're all going to be allowed 2 minutes to speak, and at the end of that time, I'd ask you to take your seat. You'll be granted a rebuttal opportunity at the end of each question, so that you may want to continue on something that was said about you or against your party. You don't have to do the rebuttal if you don't want to. The purpose of this forum is to express your views so the people of Durham Region have an understanding of what it is that you and your party stand for. It's not intended to create any conflict, so please, I ask you to be very, very cognizant of that, of your opponents. We're not going to tolerate any personal criticism should that arise. So at this point, I will ask Mr. Abraham to join us up at the podium and give us a 2-minute summarization of his party and his platform.
Good evening. My name is Grant Abraham. I'm the leader of the United Party of Canada. It's a delight to be here with my fellow contestants, and I'm grateful for each and every one of them that have shown up here tonight to actually have the important conversations that our nation needs to have. This party has been formed because of the agenda that we are seeing in the country as expressed by Justin Trudeau to reset the country, to make Canada the first post-nation state. And these are acute concerns for Canadians, mostly because we are feeling what is happening to the country without necessarily understanding the agenda behind it. Post-nation state means that we are being disconnected from the linkage of democracy and the people to our governors, and it's shifting those decision-making powers to places outside of Canada. And these are huge issues for Canada. The challenge for us in Canada is that the Conservative Party of Canada is not engaging these discussions. We're not having them. No one is asking what post-nation state means. No one understands what a reset means. And this party has been formed to actually have the intelligent conversations that our nation needs in terms of regionalization, the disgruntlement in the West, and the fact that we actually have Conservative MPs applauding Nazi war criminals in our House of Commons, and that we have Bill C-4 passed that criminalizes parents for seeking to impede their children from surgery that will mutilate their genitalia. These are huge issues. Canadians don't even understand them, and we need to have these discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll ask from the New Democratic Party, Mr. Chris Borja. Mr. Borja.
Hello and thank you. I'm running because I'm facing a lot of what many people are facing. Way back, I talked to my dad about what I should do when I was in high school, and he said, make sure you have a good career. So I suggested a trade. I got into electrical. And I worked hard as an electrician, and I found that things were still unaffordable. Life was becoming unattainable. So I went back to him and I said, I did what you said. I got a good job. I got into a trade. What should I do? And he's like, well, you just got to make more money. So I joined a union. I make good money. I kept working. Still can't afford it. So I went back to my dad. And I asked him, Dad, I did it. I got more money. I still can't afford it. He's like, oh, maybe you need a better job. Somehow, I got a better job. I was able to do it. I still can't afford it. So I ran provincially. I'm trying to make a change. I'm trying to make a difference. We're all going through a lot of the same stuff. We're feeling the pinch at the register. We're trying to afford homes to stay living here in Durham with our families instead of uprooting to go try and afford a house. Nothing changed. So I'm getting tired. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting angry. So I'm running federally. At least with some federal oversight, bring in some changes, and actually do what we've been promising to do. That's why I'm running. That's why I chose the NDP. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have representing the People's Party of Canada, Ms. Patricia Conlon.
Hi, everyone. My name's Patricia Conlon, and I'm running to be the next MP for Durham with the People's Party of Canada. I came to Scugog almost 20 years ago with my late husband, and we raised our 2 boys here. We have deep roots. My late husband's great-grandpa was a highly respected local leader, and Conlon Road in North Oshawa was named after him. I love this community. I've run an employment and leadership development firm for over 25 years, and I've written 2 books on health and resilience. I'm a Christian and a mother. In 2021, I put my career on hold when I witnessed unprecedented government overreach and media censorship with mandates and lockdowns. I became deeply motivated to run for the only party protecting our constitutional freedoms. Since then, I've continued to see the harm being done to our society by a globalist agenda, which is hollowing out our culture, traditions, economy, and even our morality. We're being reshaped away from a sovereign nation into a shopping mall and tax farm under the uniparty establishment, including the Conservatives, Liberals, and NDP. My intention when elected is to stand up against this corrosive forces of globalism and restore Canada to a respected and prosperous country. Since the last election, I've gained trust in Durham with my honesty and willingness to listen to alternative views. People are tired of the establishment parties who are dictated to by the WHO, UN, Davos, WEF. That's left them poorer and sicker and without a voice. They want a Canada First MP to hold the other parties accountable before the general election, like the removal of parental rights with Bill C-4, the pushing of unsustainable mass immigration. I will restore parental rights, lower immigration to solve the housing and healthcare crisis, protect farmers and green spaces, and free speech and medical choice, and be a Canada First MP. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have running as independent, Mr. Pranay Gunti. Welcome.
Thank you, and hello everyone. I'm Pranay Gunti, a software professional, a former teacher, a father, and more importantly, a dedicated community advocate. I'm running independent in this by-election because the people of Durham deserve a voice that is not bound to a chain of command, but to the empowerment of every resident of Durham. Durham is my home, and I share the everyday challenges of our neighbors. I'm a member of municipal advisory committees. I run a nonprofit in Clarington and led several community-focused initiatives. My profound understanding of the region and its issues and my persistence in finding practical solutions set me apart. I'm humbled to be here today and stand among the people with similar interests. I look forward to a productive dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have next from the Centrist Party of Canada, Mr. Khalid Qureshi. Welcome.
My name is Khalid Qureshi. I am from the Centrist Party of Canada. And being from the Centrist Party of Canada, I believe that Canada needs help. Canada needs help in internal policy, where we need to bring back the fabric of the society of Canada into one. We are facing a distraction and a fabrication between the East and the West. On the international front, we have a policy which is not fair and which is not prudent. We are favoring one warring team against another, and all this is not good. And top of it all, the financial policy that we have is not transparent, it is not honest, and it is not fair or prudent. We see homeless people on our roads. We see unemployment rising by the day. We see that we cannot afford prices in the market anymore. We see that we cannot afford houses, whether we want to own them and pay mortgage or we want to rent them. Whatever the case may be, we are in trouble. Drugs are getting excessive on our streets. Our education system is not up to the mark. Our hospitals are having lineups behind them. And in all that, we are in the middle. The people of Canada, the people of Durham, where is the prudence that Canada used to have? Canada is a first world country. We are turning into poverty. We are falling into poverty. The Centrist Party of Canada will do all it can to get out of this and make Canada one again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Mr. Robert Rock of the Liberal Party of Canada. Mr. Rock.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robert Rock, and I'm your Liberal candidate for Durham. I'm a local guy. I live in the community. I work in the community. And, you know, I'm already serving this community as a municipal councillor in Scugog. For years, you've seen me out at events, volunteering. You've seen me supporting local businesses and working every day to make Durham a better place for everyone. My focus is on this community and how we can make this community and the life for everyone in this community better. I want to be your voice in Ottawa to continue to deliver, you know, on better healthcare, on affordability issues, and making the cost of living better, to protect our seniors, and to make sure more homes continue to get built, and to protect homeowners. I also am a very strong advocate for the nuclear industry because I want the nuclear industry to grow here in this community because of the amazing union jobs that it provides and what a boom it is for our local economy to have that here. I see tonight's debate as a job interview. And showing up is showing respect to you, the voters, in this community. And it's a shame that the Conservative candidate didn't respect you enough to show up here tonight and to have his ideas debated on. Durham needs to elect someone with experience who will be a strong voice and put the priorities of this riding first in Ottawa. And I'm going to work hard every single day to deliver on that promise. I believe I am the best choice for this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I did want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be here, but also for taking the time out of your lives to actually run for office. It's a very, very important thing that you're doing. It's also something that's appreciated by everybody, I'm sure, and whether the outcome is in your favor or not, everyone in Durham will be very grateful for what you have done to get yourself to this spot. Our first question today, which we'll start with Mr. Abrams. It's about affordability. Affordability is a very, very serious concern. It's been on the mind of every Canadian. Canadians have been hit with the rising costs at every single turn. What will your party do about the rising cost of food, and how are you going to put more money in the hands of Durham residents? Mr. Abrams?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a really important question. You know, it's not just a Durham issue, it's a policy issue that has been an application of restrictions by the Liberal Party across this nation. It starts with the restriction of our oil and gas industry that has caused us to have to import oil rather than have our own competitive advantage of having cheap fuel. It starts with a tax on carbon that has completely increased transportation costs, which adds all of the expenses to farmers and the transportation distribution system in our nation. Those are all adding costs and expenses to every Canadian household. It adds costs to the expense of fuel in this nation for heating, and Canadians are hurting. These are simple things to fix. We have abundant resources that can be extracted environmentally and carefully. We have some of the cleanest fuel in the world, and we simply need to see it released. And without engaging these deeper conversations about affordability, if we simply talk about carbon all the time and the cost of carbon and the restrictions that have been placed, we are simply going to get poorer, and the costs are going to increase, especially with the increasing costs of the carbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Borja, the same question. Would you like me to repeat the question? Or? Okay. So affordability has been on the mind of every Canadian. Canadians have been hit with rising costs at every turn. What will your party do to do something about the rising cost of food and putting more money in the hands of residents of Durham?
Like so many others, I'm feeling the squeeze at the till. And I'm really proud to say that the NDP has already put forward a bill to help with the prices at the groceries, to rein in on the corporate greed of such people like Galen Weston when they are overcharging for basic necessities. We shouldn't have to pick and choose between paying our rent or affording groceries or affording the prescriptions we need. NDPs always put forward a plan to help others, to make it more affordable for working people. And I want to be a part of that, to bring that forward by introducing pharmacare, so you don't have to pay for your meds anymore. It'll be covered. It opens up some cash to help pay for, the rising costs. But with the costs rising, we also want to empower the Competition Bureau, so that way there's more powers for them to go after corporate greed and actually keep an open market so that life's more affordable for your average Canadian.
Thank you. Next, we'll ask Ms. Conlon from the People's Party of Canada. So the question again, affordability has been on the mind of every Canadian. Canadians have been hit with rising costs at every turn. What will your party do about the rising cost of food, and how will they put more money in the hands of Durham residents? Ms. Conlon.
Thank you. As a registered holistic nutritionist, I believe every Canadian and every resident of Durham should have access to food that healthy and nourishes. I'm a strong advocate for protecting our local food supply and supporting farmers. I will eliminate the carbon tax when elected because it's a huge burden on everyone, from farmers and producers to our energy workers. I'll also protect farmers from net zero mandates, which are unachievable and harmful, like zero COVID was, and will negatively impact our food and energy security. With all of the uprises in Europe we see now over these mandates, I think it's important that we take a strong stand to support our farmers and food supply, encourage community and local gardens, tax credit for farmers, and other incentives for local food production and food banks to help the needy and the poor. Inflation can be reduced by stopping growth in the federal government. Lowering property taxes and other taxes will also help struggling families with the cost of living. I'll work hard to ensure our banks are who are saving money are not recklessly speculating with that money, and also work to support a living wage and ensure that foreign temporary workers aren't undercutting Canadians for salaries and jobs. I think it's important that we help Canadians first with Canadian first policies to help all of our families grow and prosper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Gunty. So the question again is about affordability, which obviously is on the mind of every Canadian. We've been hit with rising costs at every turn. So what will your party do to, first of all, curb the rising cost of food, and secondly, put more money in the residents of Durham, more money in the pockets of Durham residents?
Sure. In Durham, like many other parts of Canada, people are not looking for someone to put money in their pockets. They are looking for opportunities to empower themselves by earning their living in a honest, respectable way and being able to provide for their family. There is no denying the fact that people are stretching every dollar to keep their families fed and happy. As reported by Statistics Canada, grocery prices have soared more than 5% in past 1 year, putting immense pressure on family budgets. To address this crisis, we need sustainable long-term strategies that empower the community. By fostering innovation and supporting local businesses, we create a robust local economy that offers well-paying jobs, ultimately putting more money in their pockets. Improving our local supply chains and investing in local agriculture is a key to making food more affordable. By reducing our dependency on imports and supporting local farmers, we can ensure a stable supply of affordable, nutritious food. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Qureshi, the Centrist Party of Canada, the same question about affordability. Canadians have been hit with rising costs at every turn. What will your party do about the rising cost of food, and how will you make money more available to Durham residents?
Yeah, the rising cost is an issue, not a small issue. It's an issue that takes you right from the morning to the evening, trying to make sure that you can make your ends meet. The rising cost will affect your food supply, will affect your housing. You cannot rent your house, you cannot live your house, you cannot pay your mortgage. And rising costs will affect you in terms of your schooling, in terms of higher education, everything it affects. Now, how do you remove the rising costs? You can have contracts with chains, the chain suppliers who supply food, and ask them to reduce. We can reduce our unemployment. Unemployment is one of the things that is the most. We can take our homeless and put them back into their homes. We can do so many things. We can improve, in Durham especially, we can improve our industry, the auto industry, the biotech industry. We can improve tourism. There's so many things that we can do in Durham that will affect our cost. The cost of living is something that is connected directly to employment. Permanent jobs, not temporary jobs, and jobs that can help us to sustain our everyday life. It is very important that we know exactly which are the weak points in the society which we can cover and take up and solve them and resolve them before we can expect anything that will change in our lives. The cost of everyday living in terms of food, and in terms of our education, and in terms of our housing is the top priority that we will resolve as the Centrist Party of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From the Liberal Party of Canada, Mr. Robert Rock. Again, the topic is affordability. Canadians have been hit with rising costs at every turn. What will the Liberal Party do about the rising cost of food, and how will they put more money in the hands of Durham residents?
Well, I've been out there at the doors for the last couple of months, and as a municipal councillor, I'm always out in the community talking to people. I know affordability has been a top of mind issue across the board when I'm out there speaking with anybody. The one thing I know is the Liberal government has been there for Canadians through an unprecedented time period of COVID, and coming out of COVID into a high inflation, high interest rate environment. What I do know is we've put a lot of programs in place to address these issues, but I know that there's a lot more to do. We've been providing rebates directly to Canadian families to help them out with the high cost of groceries, as well as giving them rebates on other issues. We have been increasing the Canada Workers Benefit. We've increased the Canada Child Benefit. We have increased old age security and guaranteed income supplement, and we've now indexed the Canadian Pension Plan and the guaranteed income supplement to inflation. This is going to ensure that our seniors are protected and cared for as they age. Also, we have provided 9 million people with dental care coverage that had not had dental care coverage before. We've also lifted 650,000 children out of poverty. These are all amazing programs, and we need to continue doing more. I'm going to pull on two programs that I think are extremely important. $10 a day daycare absolutely changes everyone's environment. When my kids were young, my childcare costs were more than my mortgage, and my wife actually had to leave her work and work from home because of the financial burden of paying for daycare. Now with $10 a day daycare, my children won't have to be affected by that, and they won't need to make those compromises. What I'm seeing is Pierre Poilievre and his Conservative government talking about affordability in front of Mike and voting against it every single time.
Thank you. Now, does anyone need an opportunity to rebuttal? You're going to rebuttal your own?
No,
oh. Okay. You have 30 seconds.
So from a rebuttal perspective, I just want to be clear, we hear a lot of things of what the Liberal government could do better or what they've done wrong. Some of the things I want to push back on, we need to remember who has responsibility for what. When it comes to rent control, when it comes to property taxes, those aren't federal responsibilities. Those are provincial and municipal responsibilities.
Okay. And Ms. Conlon, if you'd like to make a statement as well. And I do remind you folks that the rebuttal is intended for something that was said that you're in disagreement with.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a lot of these issues with affordability have occurred with a corrupt and irresponsible government, in my opinion. And the People's Party of Canada winning their first seat will hold them all accountable to ensure that global policies don't affect our local municipalities in negative and harmful ways. Thank you.
Appreciate that, but that wasn't really a rebuttal. That was just a continuation. So if you would watch it, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. So the next question we have is about crime, which is a big issue, and it's getting worse. The Macdonald-Laurier Institute, Canada's justice system, appears to be performing much worse today than it was 5 years ago. Their latest report found that Canada's violent crime severity was at its highest point since 2007. We'll start with Mr. Rock. What will your party do to address these concerns?
Well, as a municipal councillor, protecting and making everybody feel secure is something that I take very seriously as a current job responsibility. I'm also a father of 4 children, so I've always been very concerned about the community that my kids were growing up in and living in. I think it comes with the territory of being a parent. It's not something that we should take lightly, but I also want to put the current idea of crime and the lack of safety in our country into a bit of perspective. Berkshire Hathaway does a travel review and outlines the safest countries in the world for people to travel to. Canada was the #1 safest country in the world to travel to, according to many metrics used by Berkshire Hathaway. The Liberal government has been working very hard on the issue of crime. We have taken deadly weapons off the streets. We have been working with polices and provinces to reform bail. And we have been there to put more money into fighting organized crime. A particular focus has been placed on car theft recently. And there's been an announcement of $28 million being put in a program to allow the Canadian Border Security Agency or services agencies to upgrade their capabilities to detect cars that are going to be exported internationally. And in contrast, while we as the Liberal government have been working with police and provinces and municipalities for solutions, the Conservatives have been busy making videos.
Thank you very much. The same question to be addressed to Mr. Abraham. The issue is crime, the fact that the crime in this country is the highest it's been since 2007. What will your party do to address this concern?
The truth is, since 2015, serious crime has increased exponentially since the last Conservative government was in place. We have a real problem with crime in our country. As a lawyer, I recognize that this issue of crime is a federal issue. We need to reform our sentencing requirements. We need to get more difficult, more intense on serious crime. We need to approach crime from a bottom-up and a top-down perspective. And by that I mean there is a clear evidential trail in terms of criminals and criminal activity. The people that commit the serious crimes also commit the more petty crimes. And if, as a country, if we're prepared to let those smaller crimes go, we're losing the ability to actually track and catch most of the criminals that will commit the serious crime as well. We need to look at this issue as a bottom-up, top-down issue. We need to engage the protocols for how the Crown prosecutors across the nation are engaging this, and we need to get serious about our enforcement and our sentencing. And these are issues that Canadians are interested in coast to coast. There's also a component here about a ridiculous drug policy that the Liberal government has engaged in terms of releasing a free flow of fentanyl in terms of our nation. And these abuse characteristics in our country contribute to crime, and everybody in the nation knows it, and we need to correlate and connect the dots top to bottom and recognize that it's a federal issue that needs engagement from the Attorney General or the Justice Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to ask Mr. Chris Borgia, the New Democratic Party of Canada, the same question about crime in this country going up at an outrageous rate rather. What will your party do to curb that?
We have a right to feel safe in our homes and in our communities. It's not right that we're seeing an increase in crime. We tried the conservative approach of crime and punishment. Under Trudeau, we have 75 judicial vacancies, so there's a backlog at the federal level. We need more community supports to help people who might be in crisis before it goes too far. We need more places for people to go when they're not feeling safe or they need help. We need more community health professionals, mental health professionals as first responders. We need to bring back border security officers that have been cut. Border security is a crucial part to keeping illegal guns out of Canada and to make sure our stolen vehicles aren't shipped out of country. We must enhance our justice system. The result is a justice system that is, overburdened, it's slow, it doesn't treat people fairly. The status quo isn't serving Canadians, and it's time to change it. Over a decade in government, the Conservatives made the wrong choices in criminal law that depended on equality, led to heavy clogging court systems. The Liberals came to power promising to make criminal justice fairer and more efficient, but they interfered in the justice process for big corporations facing criminal charges and passed legislation that may lead to more wrongful convictions and may leave many marginalized people without legal aid. A new Democratic government will restore the independence of the judiciary by reducing the reliance on mandatory minimums and allowing the judges to have greater discretion in sentencing. As we work toward reconciliation, we must uphold the importance of community-based and restorative justice approaches. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Ms. Conlon, People's Party of Canada. The issue is violent crime going up substantially since 2007. What will your party do to address that issue?
Thank you. Our judicial system is not serving the people. We need to return to the rule of law instead of appeasing repeat offenders or those convicted of violent crime with leniency. We have a society that allows for upstanding men with their families to be in prison for almost 2 years without a trial for peacefully protesting. That's the Coots 4. And a pastor to be thrown in solitary confinement for extended periods for the crime of having held a church service. We've had bank accounts of truckers shut down who didn't want to take an experimental drug to keep their job, while violent offenders are released on the street to reoffend. It's unacceptable. The bigger problem is we have an immoral society where it's now acceptable to expose young children to pornography in public school under the guise of inclusion for SOGI, a culture that promotes cheating, selfishness, and has normalized drug and alcohol use. We teach kids to identify as victims and blame others instead of instilling self and other respect, which we need to do, and personal responsibility. We have corruption on with our government for things that I can't describe here. For example, the ArriveCan app scandal and many others. In addition, the politics of identity has been weaponized, so those who are virtue signaling succeed in court only. As your MP, I'll encourage a government leading with integrity, ensure our human rights are upheld, and duly elected government officials who dissent with the narrative are not silenced. I will protect legal firearm owner rights and protect the right to self-defense. Our courts have allowed identity rights to trump our charter rights, and this has done massive harm to the society. We also need more addiction recovery centers and mental health counselors and to treat people with a growing number who are struggling with addiction and mental health issues so they can return to a healthy life instead of being drawn into crime and violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goodtay, running as independent. The issue is crime, as high as it is. How do you expect to address these concerns?
The MacDonald Laurier Institute's report is indeed alarming. This is a clear signal that our justice system and public safety strategies require urgent reassessment and action. My approach is focused on transparency, accountability, and collaboration between lawmakers and law enforcement agencies. The collaboration should result in robust policies addressing the challenges limiting the Canadian justice system's effective functioning. While it's vital to improve the effectiveness of our police forces and judicial systems, it is also critical to invest in community programs focusing on education, mental health, and youth engagement that can significantly reduce crime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Qureshi, you need me to repeat the question, or are you okay?
No, I understand the question. In my mind and in the mind of the members of the Centrist Party of Canada, crime is not a sport. It is not a profession. And it is not something that we do for fun. So if there's crime on your streets, there must be a basic reason for that crime. And somebody has to be responsible for that crime. And the reason and the main root cause that we see is that we are not using our money properly. The money that we should use, that should trickle back on the streets, in the houses, into the pockets of our citizens of Canada, is going out into useless episodes of helping one nation or another, one country or another, one warring group or another, and giving the money out. Our taxpayers' money is going out to places and areas where they should not go. Money should come back to us. And the primary reason of all and most of the problems that we have in Canada is that our finances are not being dealt with transparently and honestly and prudently. So the important thing is that if we provide employment to people who are on the street, and if we provide homes to people who are on the street, and if we provide jobs which are sustainable and which are enough to meet their ends meet, and if we are responsible to make sure that the market prices are low and the inflation is controlled, then we are in a position to say that a person who is going out for crime is going out for crime without a reason. And going out for crime without a reason is something that we should look after and strengthen the police and educate them in school, give moral science or whatever in their schools, and make sure that they understand that crime is not good. But if crime is a need, then the government is responsible, the municipality is responsible, and money should come down from the main government to the municipality in our cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone need an opportunity to write any issues that were wronged against him? Mr. Rock?
I just want to be clear. Safe supply saves lives. By having safe supply, it means that people are alive to get that treatment. Without safe supply, many of those people will die on the street and never get a chance to get to treatment. Also, we have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms that outline who and when will get bail and not get bail. Thank you.
Okay. Again, I would ask you folks that a rebuttal is intended to write something that was wronged against you by one of the other candidates. It's not to continue your presentation. The next question we have, we'll address this to Mr. Borja. Home ownership is becoming a very, very unattainable dream for many Canadians. Mr. Borja, how will your party address the whole affordability and supply of housing in Durham region?
Home ownership is something I'm looking forward to. To be honest, I'd given up on the dream of owning a home, but I hope that one day I can. But people in Durham, we're being priced out of the market. I've experienced the struggle, like I mentioned, been through an eviction, soaring rent rates. You want to grow up and start a family in the same area that your parents raised you. So I'm committed to financial responsibility that's required to invest in more affordable housing initiatives and actually have follow-up to it instead of just bringing them in and leaving them to kind of go off on their own. The NDP has a target of creating at least 500,000 units of quality, affordable homes nationwide. That's a 10-year plan, with half being done within the first 5 years. We'll achieve this plan by working with all levels of government to increase the capacity of rent supports and for cooperative and social and nonprofit housing models that are sustainable for generations to come. The NDP will set up a dedicated Fast Start Fund to streamline the application process and get communities the assistance that they need to turn these housing efforts into a vibrant and healthy neighborhood. We want to include green space and everything that we've grown to love, especially around here in Durham. It's always coming up as a topic of debate and discussion, especially at the door, that we need more affordable housing, but there's a right way to do it, and it protects the environment and keeps the green space that we have all grown to love. I have more to say, but I'll end my point there, so I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Conlon? Same question about home ownership and affordability for people in Durham when it comes to housing.
As your elected MP for the People's Party, I will solve the housing crisis by significantly reducing the mass unsustainable immigration levels. Excess and unprecedented demand is the biggest driver in the housing crisis. We can't build our way out of this problem because there's not enough labor or supplies. In addition, we don't want to build over top of our rich green spaces, and I will protect those. That's some of the most fertile agriculture lands we have. In 2022, Canada recklessly added over 600,000 new immigrants and non-permanent residents. This has put extreme pressure on housing as well as healthcare and other areas. Is it right for a 21-year-old working 2 jobs to be forced onto the street because he can't pay his rent? When a foreign person lands in our airport, claims refugee status, is put in a luxury hotel? Is it right for our elderly and our critically ill to be denied life-saving surgeries and treatments because there's too many people? There's not enough doctors, nurses, houses, or jobs. As your MP, I'll advocate for much lower immigration levels to solve the housing crisis, limit foreign speculation and ownership in residential properties. PPC will also remove Canada from the UN's Global Compact for Migration, as it's a loophole for unscreened refugees to enter Canada who may not share our values or plan to contribute to the economy, and will act to further erode our standard of living. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gauthier, running as an independent. The issue is housing, the cost of housing, the rising cost of housing. How do you plan to address that?
Housing is the most basic and essential need of every Canadian. While the world is advancing in tech innovations, it's unfortunate that access to affordable housing remains a dream for many Canadians. We have all seen the recent data and projections on how average home prices reached unattainable levels for the average Canadian family. We are stuck with burden of increased expenses and saturated income sources, a true crisis. I'll work relentlessly with a multifaceted approach that includes increasing the housing supply through innovation and sustainable development that meets the community needs. Another thing would be combating speculative investment, making more homes available for residents. Moreover, addressing the shortage of labor in the construction industry is critical. By introducing skill development programs, we can ensure that our workforce is equipped to meet the needs and the demands of our growing housing needs. For instance, a partnership between local governments, educational institutions, and the private sector could create apprenticeship programs that fill this gap and provide well-paying jobs for our youth. Tackling the housing crisis requires collaboration across all levels of government, and dedicated independent leader can successfully foster that collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gauthier. Next, we'll ask Mr. Qureshi. He's from the Centrist Party of Canada. The same issue. It's all about housing, the cost of housing, how housing costs are going through the roof.
Yeah, housing is going through the roof. We cannot buy a house because the mortgage is too high and the price is too high. And we cannot rent a house because the rent is too high. And we cannot sleep on the street because if we sleep on the street, then we're homeless. So what do? As Canadians, the question that I have is, and the Centrist Party of Canada has, is why is Canada, which is a first world country, in a state where we have homeless on our streets, 350,000 homeless every year? Can you imagine? So housing is an issue. And in order to resolve this issue, number one, we have to get the money that we're sending out to other countries back into our pockets. our industry that we have for the real estate has to be controlled and streamlined and trained to do things that are within the control of the public. It is not that we will just make houses and sell them at the rates that we are selling them. It has to be reduced and controlled. The rent control board has to be put into action. They have to make sure that the rents are within the ability of payment of the renters. And then we have people who have bought houses who are not even living in Canada, living outside. And when they're living outside, they are just buying houses and leaving them empty. All these houses must be rented out by law. You should not be able to leave a house empty and rotting in there and nobody living in there. We have people on the street. Why are houses empty? And there's other red tapeism. There's more things that we have to control. So it is the municipal committee that has to control, and it is central government that is to send back the money to make sure that the houses are on a lower price. Clustered houses are not something that we will be able to get the help from. We have to have houses which are affordable, low-cost houses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next from the Liberal Party of Canada, Mr. Robert Rock. Again, the issue is housing, the soaring price of housing in Durham region. How do you plan to address that?
Everybody deserves a safe place to call their home. I have 4 kids in their 20s, and I know how important it is to ensure that we're continuing to build more homes so my kids will be able to attain the dream of owning a home. I want to be clear, housing is a provincial responsibility. And while we know the Ontario government hasn't really stepped up on that file, nor have they stepped up on the issue of rent control, which they wiped out here in this province, the Canadian Liberal government has been stepping in and helping out. So we've been working directly with municipalities and various communities to get homes built. To date, 550,000 homes have been committed to be built with over 60 municipalities. And that number is growing weekly. What I can point to is right here in Durham, in Whitby, MP Ryan Turnbull was able to secure nearly $25 million for the town of Whitby to build more homes around transit, which is addressing their specific housing needs. Having an MP who is connected to the various municipalities, who have those relationships, who can sit down with those municipalities and create solutions that fit for those particular communities are going to be vitally important as we continue to move forward with housing. You know, in contrast, we've seen Pierre Poilievre threaten and bully and talk about penalizing municipalities. As a municipal councillor, I know that can't work because of one of my responsibilities as a municipal councillor is to sit down with my community and build housing solutions that fit for our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Abraham, the United Party of Canada, the same issue about the soaring cost of housing.
Yes, thank you. Housing is a provincial issue, but our problems are driven by federal issues. And it's directly linked to the Liberal government spending like a drunken sailor in our nation. We have increased inflation. We have increased interest. What we need to do is incentivize municipalities to fast-track permits and zoning for new homes. We need to link federal funding to municipalities with measurable metrics when they are attained in terms of permit speed. We need to establish an economic strategy for Canada as a nation that will develop our northern communities and other communities that aren't in these huge urban belts. We need to look at immigration and, as a part of an economic strategy, assess immigration, perhaps slow it, perhaps have a season where we actually allow this logjam for housing to be fixed and then return to healthy levels of immigration in our nation. We need more money to grow these smaller communities. We need to release tax credits to move these communities, to allow people to move to these communities. And finally, and most importantly, we need to dismantle the agenda that's permeating our federal, provincial, and municipal governments that are linked to Agenda 2030, that are compressing people into urban places and restricting the usage of land. No 15-minute cities. This is a pervasive strategy that is undermining the value system of our nation. And Canadians need to start looking at this from a much bigger lens and assess what is creeping into our country through Agenda 2030 and how it affects the living and the cost in our nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone feel the need to rebut? Okay, we'll start with Mr. Qureshi. Oh. Sorry. So I would ask you, when you begin your rebuttal, please start with a statement as to what exactly was said that you are rebutting against, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, the immigration policy, it was said that immigrants should not be coming in because they're a burden on the system. My take on that is that immigrants bring in information and experience along with manpower. So it is not the immigration policy and it is not the influx of immigrants that is important, that is not good. It is the management of those people who are coming in, which is the ones which we should be looking after. Management of immigrants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Conlon?
Thank you. I just wanted to rebut that comment, and I just wanted to let everyone know I've run an employment firm for over 25 years, and I've helped many wonderful immigrants who've come to Canada get a job and create a better life. So I love immigrants as well as existing Canadians. But there is, even the Liberals many years ago when we were in this sort of turmoil, they reduced immigration. It is an issue of demand, supply and demand, as well as the burden on our infrastructure such as healthcare that are affected. We must put Canadians first. Thank you.
Thank you. I think appreciate that. Mr. Rock.
Yeah, I just want to address the idea of Agenda 2030. What we heard is somebody say that municipal, provincial, and federal governments are associated with Agenda 2030. As a municipal councillor, I can tell you quite clearly that I have not heard any talk, nor is there any discussion around Agenda 2030. Not even sure what that is. It doesn't exist in this riding, nor has it ever been discussed.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, sorry, Mr. Abram?
Yeah, I would like to respond.
Yeah, please. Come on up.
Just as a response to that, the comment was not to say that we should not have immigrants. I'm from an immigrant family. This nation's built on the values of immigrants coming to this nation. And I want to be very clear about that I set the comment in the context of an economic strategy for the nation and the development of our country that is built upon immigration. So let's not misinterpret comments in that way that I'm against immigration. In no way is that what I said. I said we need to strategize a plan to absorb them and look at what the control is in terms of the numbers coming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Our next question. This is a little bit closer to home. We've talked a lot about federal issues. This is a little closer to home. So we'll start with Ms. Conlon. What is your number one issue in Durham?
In my opinion, the number one issue in Durham is hopelessness. I've been speaking to thousands of residents over the past 3 years. I presented to 4 different councils, and I've held numerous town hall meetings to get open and honest dialogue. It's clear that people have lost trust in all levels of government and institutions, as well as our democratic ideals. They see the weaponization of our government-funded media with censorship, polarization of views, and constant fear-mongering. People feel disengaged and apathetic about our country and its leadership. Fairness, justice, and equal treatment under the law are now exception rather than the rule. We're witnessing the highest levels of drug overdoses, suicides, crime, homelessness, underemployment, inflation, and unaffordable housing market driven by massively high immigration levels. Families are still broken because of the polarization during COVID. Many people cannot afford the cost of living, and they're becoming poor and loaded with debt, while local and federal government spends wastefully and sends money overseas to conflicts instead of being peacekeepers. As your MP, I'll work to restore trust, hold governments accountable, and enable and empower Canadians to make their own decisions. I'll protect constitutional rights and freedoms, oppose censorship and government overreach, and repeal the unjust bills that do not serve Canadians. The power of the people is much greater than the people in the power. And with the People's Party of Canada, I'll make sure everyone knows this and rebuild our country. Thank you.
Great, thank you very, very much. Next, we'll address the same question to Mr. Gunty, who's running as independent. And the question again is, what is your number one concern for Durham region?
Durham is being overlooked. Empowering Durham is at the foremost of my priorities. When I see Durham, I see it's filled with potential. There are enough resources available to make it a thriving economic hub. When we compare the growth of Durham with that of constituencies in the West, it becomes very evident that we are being overlooked. For this transformation to happen, Durham needs a leader whose dedication and commitment lie with the region, unbound by party lines and politics. My sole focus will be to fight for that empowerment through investments in high potential untapped sectors like clean technology and renewable energy. Combined with federal support and targeted investments in local enterprises, we can create a sustainable economic ecosystem that supports job creation and drives growth right here in Durham. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll address the same question to Mr. Qureshi about what will you do for the folks in Durham?
Yeah, the number one problem in Durham, as I understand, is affordability. We cannot afford our daily expenses, we cannot afford a house, we cannot afford a job, we cannot afford education, which is higher, and we cannot afford other things that are used to be luxury, but now we cannot afford them anymore. And what is the basic reason for all that? The basic reason is that it stems from misuse of funds and our finances, transparency of fiscal budgets, and sending money out of Canada without any permission of the people of Canada or without the will of the people of Canada. Sending those out of Canada is something that is not acceptable at this point in time, where we have homeless people on the street, where we have people without job and people without enough food on their tables. So it is important that we do something about it. And doing something about it means bring money back from extra spending into the municipalities. The local people, the local municipalities must have the power to be able to work with that money and resolve their problems. It is not for the central government, the federal government, to resolve these issues. The local people of Durham, for example, should be having control of that money to be able to make plans and to be able to execute them. Our biotechnology, our tourism, our auto industry, there's so much that we have that we can give. And if we can improve those, there's no reason why we should have anybody in poverty. We are sinking into poverty, and we must get Canada out of it. The Centrist Party of Canada will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rock, the same question. What will you and your party do for the residents of Durham region?
So, to be clear, the number one issue in this community is affordability. I think we've spoken a lot on affordability. Number two and number three in my mind are housing and healthcare, all of which I think we have a good track record on that. So what I want to use is a little bit of time here to talk about another thing that I think is extremely important to this community, and that's the nuclear industry. The nuclear industry has been a strong driver for our local economy. It provides amazing jobs, which are union wages. People are making good money, they have benefits, and they have pensions. And they're able to live and work in this community, and that keeps their money here in this community. Many communities that have people that commute, the money that the people make is often lost to the community that they commute to. The nuclear industry continuing to grow is keenly important to the success of this riding. That's why I was very proud to be part of the team advocating directly to the Canadian Nuclear Securities Commission to ensure that the 4 small modular reactors will be built at Darlington. I'm also been a strong voice to ensure that CANDO technology, which is a Canadian IP, continues to be used here in Canada and be sold abroad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Abraham, United Party of Canada. What will you do for the region of Durham?
Yes, thank you very much. It is clear that the housing issue is an affordability issue, and I do agree with that. Homelessness, however, is something that is felt and going to be felt. It's 20 to 8 p.m. here tonight. It's going to be felt by many people tonight in Durham as they go to sleep out or on the streets or hard. And while we can talk about macroeconomic policy and we can talk about the nuclear sector, people are outside now and suffering. And so we need to have a compassionate policy. We need to look at those points in the Durham constituency that are actually caring for those people tonight. And I've talked to many carers across this community, pastors and caregivers and homes that are working with people that are homeless. Many of them have fentanyl addictions. There is a correlation with homelessness and our free supply of drugs. And we need to look at this issue on a much bigger chemistry level in terms of our societal responsibility. And so I will engage that issue on a macro and a holistic basis. And I will look to find funding for the agencies that are already caring, whatever they are, whether they're not-for-profits or church-based organizations that are providing the compassionate care to help people get off the street and get back up on their feet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Borgia from the NDP party. What will you and your party do for all the folks at Durham region?
So what we're hearing is concerns over affordability. And affordability ties into everything that we need to be able to afford to continue living a healthy life. And it feeds right into healthcare. We're hearing more rumbles about the introduction of American-style healthcare in Canada. No one's for it. Canadians are proud of the healthcare system that they have. It's available to them when they need it, and they don't need to reach into their own pockets to pay for it. NDP has consistently fought for what Canadians need: affordable childcare, dental care, pharmacare. All of these come together to help with affordability. I said it before, you shouldn't have to make a decision between paying your rent and buying the meds that you need. I've talked to too many people who say they're cutting their prescriptions in half to make them last longer. They go to the emergency room to get the prescriptions that they need. The amount of money we can save individually as a country by introducing pharmacare, we can save lives, we can save time. That's what I'm hearing as a concern here in Durham. And we need someone to bring that to Ottawa to make sure we get what we're saying we need. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I also want to thank everyone for their professionalism and their courtesy in answering these questions. So we do have time for one more question. So we'll start with Mr. Gunty. And the question is, do you feel that carbon tax is working? It's an issue that's been debated for quite a while. It's a very, very hot topic, and I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Mr. Gunty?
Sure. Before we debate the effectiveness of carbon tax on climate change, we have to look at its significant impact on Canadians and local businesses. As a father and a working class Canadian, and even from the perspective of a local business owner, I want the prices to come down. And we all want the prices to come down. The cost of carbon tax is too high. Yes, climate change is real and happening, and it needs to be addressed. But we need to balance economic policies with environmental realities. Federal and provincial partnerships that offer financial incentives for startups and small businesses encourage trade and attract investment in our region. So what I say is like we need to have a balance between the environmental policies with economic realities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Qureshi, the same question. Carbon tax, is it working?
No, it is not working. Carbon tax is not working. It is not the prudent way of resolving the issue of greenhouse effect, and I don't think anywhere in the world it is acceptable. A tax on the people of Canada is actually increasing the burden on the pockets of the residents. the food on the table is getting more expensive, the gas in the car is getting more expensive, and as a result, everything in the environment is getting more expensive. So what is the carbon tax doing? Is actually helping the industries to increase their cost and increase the prices in the market so we can suffer. And that's all it is doing. So the first step is that the Centrist Party of Canada believes that we should do away with this tax, but on the condition that the tax, whatever is this tax is doing, the initiatives must be continued. You cannot simply live in an environment where the environment is being polluted. So you have to look after it. How do we look after it? We can increase our industry with controls over our emissions. We can increase our dairy industry, our agriculture industry, our oil that we are hiding from the world. Germany was asking for oil last year. Nobody gave it to them. We said, okay, we cannot share our oil with you because we want to keep it for us. I don't know what we are going to do with it. The gas, natural gas, and all those things have to be used. And all the money that we waste sending it out to other countries has to be brought into Canada. So thank you very much. The gas tax, the carbon tax has to go, but the initiatives and the incentives that are related to it must stay at the cost of our own productivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, from the Liberal Party of Canada, Mr. Rock, what's your position on the carbon tax?
I take the climate very seriously. Up until a few weeks ago, I was chair of Kawartha Conservation, and I'm currently still vice chair of Conservation Ontario. The Liberal government, I know, has put a lot of programs in place to combat climate change, whether those are issues around cleaning our air, protecting our oceans and waterways, as well as planting trees. This fight for the climate is also creating jobs in this community and across Canada. First, the carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets out of 8 out of 10 Canadians than they pay out. This year, a family of 4 in Durham will be receiving $1,120 back in rebates. Carbon pricing, not tax, is there to incentivize people and businesses to change their habits and behaviors, encourages everybody to use less fossil fuels and to choose other energy sources. Those who use less fuel pay less taxes, and the rebates are simply more money in their pockets. Climate-related damages increase the average household's cost of living by $700 a year, and that is in the form of higher grocery bills due to supply chain disruptions, that is for the rising cost of insurance premiums, and tax hikes to pay for disaster recovery and infrastructure repair. Also very important to know, the climate pricing is only paid here in Ontario because the Conservative Ontario government scrapped the cap and trade system that was working very well that we had in association with Quebec and California. We would not be paying the federal carbon tax were it not for the Conservative government doing that. Also, we have seen that Pierre Poilievre and his Conservatives have no plan. In their place, they've used slogans and magical thinking in over top of actual policy. Members of his caucus have outright denied that climate exists.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Rock. Next, Mr. Abram, carbon tax issue.
Yes, thank you very much. The truth is about carbon taxation is that we need to lose it. The truth about carbon, as any farmer in Canada will tell you, is that it helps things grow and it makes the cycle of life work in terms of our food production. So trying to restrict it in this way is not a good idea. The reality is we need to steward our environment, but we need to look at this issue very carefully and recognize that Canada contributes 1.6% of global carbon, and that number is based on the recognition that we don't actually include the forests in our nation as a tree sump. So what we're doing is we're paying for the carbon that we produce when we only produce 1.6%. And the countries that produce the most, China and India, pay nothing. So that is an imbalance that is actually creating a competitive disadvantage for Canadians, for farmers, For businesses, we need to lose carbon, but create a very productive and careful environmental mechanism to steward the beautiful nation that we have and protect our environment. And we can do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And next we have Mr. Chris Borgia from the New Democratic Party talking about the carbon tax.
We know carbon pricing is not enough to tackle our climate crisis. We need to make a system that's more fair. We've had consecutive liberal and conservative governments, and they've not tackled this crisis meaningfully. It's impacted us all. Recently, we've been, unable to go outside and enjoy because of the amount of smoke from the wildfires that are taking place. We've had unprecedented flooding across the country. We're all seeing and feeling what's happening from this climate crisis that we're in, and we need meaningful action to correct that. The people most impacted by it are the ones who are constantly footing the bill to try and fix it. It's your average working family. The goal should be to target big polluters by rolling back loopholes that liberal governments has given them. I know there's a lot more that needs to be done, and that's what I'm here to do. And I'm not going to allow everyone who's already feeling how expensive life is to try and foot that bill. So, being your representative from Durham as your MP, that's the voice I'm going to bring to Ottawa, and we're going to make meaningful changes. We're going to make those who are the polluters pay their fair share, and we're not going to take the brunt of this or the full total amount of this cost on our shoulders.
Thank you very much. And next we have Ms. Patricia Conlon from the People's Party of Canada about carbon tax.
Thank you. I'm a strong advocate for the environment and for cleaning up our air, soil, and water, and I've written at length about that in 2 of my books. I will also take a strong stand to protect our green spaces and farmer in Durham. However, the carbon tax has little or no impact on climate, which is always changing and has resulted only in poverty and inflation. As your MP, I will remove the carbon tax permanently and instead focus on ways we can clean up pollution and encourage environmental responsibility and stewardship. I also will remove and work to remove net zero mandates, which are impacting negatively our farmers and our energy sector. Canadians produce the cleanest energy in the world, and we should be allowed to do that. People's Party of Canada will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord, which skims off taxpayer dollars and sends them to globalist groups instead of investing money in Canada. For conservation, I'll advocate for expanded railways and improved and more efficient, modern, reliable infrastructure. Repeatedly, Canadian scientists like Dr. Patrick Moore, who was co-founder of Greenpeace and now director of CO2 Coalition, uses real data to counter the climate narrative. He states our climate is a complex system. Earth's climate cannot be reduced to plant-friendly carbon dioxide, which currently stands at only a mere 0.04% of atmospheric gases. Like the crushing COVID mandates, it's been forbidden to discuss and debate this issue. We need different points of view to move forward with a better solution. I'll hold Health Canada accountable for not doing their job of properly screening out toxic substances, drugs, and allowing them to enter our human health and environment. And I'll protect our air, soil, and water for all residents of Durham. But I will remove the carbon tax permanently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gunty, you wanted to comment?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. And I just missed something so I would like to add as per federal government's latest update, carbon tax payments were about 900 millions for year 2023 and 24, but the same payment is around 600 plus millions for 24 and 25. So while there is an increase in $15 per ton, still the payments are going to go low. And local businesses, they are just getting 7% of their payments in return, whereas their carbon footprint is 0.
Great, thank you very much. And Mr. Qureshi, you also wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to state that the Government of Canada gives you back, after having deducted the carbon tax from you all year, they give you back a certain amount. And then at the same time, they're making sure that the fuel charges are increased such that your prices in the market are increased. The amount that we are paid back from the Government of Canada is far less than the amount that we're paying in the market on raised prices. And I think that is something that is a deception. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Rock.
I want to address the topic that many people have brought up around removing the carbon tax that will reduce prices. I'm going to use an example of gas prices. Right now, there is a number, I believe it's 10, 12 cents currently, that carbon tax adds to gas prices. By removing the carbon tax, the argument is that those gas prices will come down. Let's be clear. We have no idea that the corporations that run the gas stations won't simply be using that as a way to increase their corporate profits.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you all very much for your very candid responses and for your courtesy during this entire forum. I would now like to ask each of you to give us a 2-minute summarization and overview of what you feel you'd like to say in wrap-up. We'll start with Mr. Rock.
I decided to put my name forward because Durham needs to be represented by someone from the community who understands the community and has a vested interest in seeing this community succeed. I am that best choice to bring this community's voice to Ottawa. I have political experience, I have local knowledge, and I have connections to all of the municipalities. These are all important skills that your MP needs to ensure that your voice is heard and to work with the municipalities to find solutions that are facing our community and be able to present solutions to those problems. It's also a chance for this community to test drive an MP, right? We have a year and a half until the next election, and we have an opportunity to elect somebody in government, not somebody in opposition. Being in government will give me the best opportunities to work within the government and the relevant ministries to continue to advocate for solutions or opportunities that this community has and drive change. The Conservative candidate couldn't be bothered to be here tonight. If he wanted to be your voice for this community, he would have showed up and displayed his ideas for all of you, right? He chose not to do that. And that disregard for you and this process is not the skills that we need in our next leader. It only confirms that he will be Ottawa's voice in Durham, not Durham's voice in Ottawa. You know what? Instead, I will be that voice. I will continue to fight every day for this community. Our community deserves better, and I am that choice.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Abram.
Yes, thank you for this time tonight. I think my reflection for comments to the people in Durham is that the Liberal Party of Canada is taking our nation over a cliff edge. The Conservative Party of Canada, just like their candidate, is not here tonight. They're not talking about the issues that are really hitting Canada. The reality is that this riding, this constituency was betrayed with the last candidate that ran. We elected in Canada, and I was a former Conservative Party member, we elected a true blue leader of the Conservative Party that suddenly became a blue Tory or a blue Liberal or even a red Liberal. And so my question is, what do we actually need? There's great concerns of what the Liberal Party's doing, and I think as I move around the riding, I'm hearing that people are voting for the Conservatives because they simply want to remove the Liberals. And yet the real conversations aren't happening by the Conservative Party. You're right, there is a test drive window. I'm asking that this constituency elect a leader of a federal party that can mobilize Western Canada to a minority or greater position in the next general election and actually return this country to the bedrock values that built it, to see our nation restored to strength, freedom secured, and see all Canadians empowered to be fruitful and prosperous in our nation again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll ask Mr. Borgia for a summarization.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone here who put this event on tonight. We really do appreciate this opportunity. For the last however many decades, we've been watching the same channel. We're watching a revolving door of liberal and conservative governments where the working class keeps falling behind, and yet the ultra-wealthy only become wealthier. The conservatives have consistently voted against services and supports for working families. It's what they do. Conservatives cut. The liberals make promises. They don't deliver. Their own minister is calling them out for not building the houses that they've promised. It's enough of the consistent letdowns. Everything the NDP has been done to give you and your family a break, to build you up for a better future here in Durham, whether it's introducing affordable childcare, dental care for families, or bringing every Canadian the meds that they need with no cost to them. If you elect me, you'll be getting a voice in Ottawa that speaks for what affects you and your family. I'll continue to fight for the needs of the working people who are far too often left footing the bill of these constant lies. We're being told those lies by tuning into the same old program, but it's time to change the channel. You and your family deserve better. There's still hope to do better by all, and that's what I'm going to do as your Member of Parliament. I will fight for better lives of people here in Durham. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Conlon, People's Party of Canada.
Thank you, Durham voters, for having the courage to change your vote to achieve positive change. We have a former Liberal running to be your Conservative candidate and a former Conservative running to be your Liberal candidate. So we know the Uniparty exists. Together with the NDP, they're implementing globalist policies that are harming us all. People are tired of establishment politicians that say one thing and do another as they work for foreign entities and not for the people. They're looking for new leaders who will put Canada and Canadians first. As your MP, I'll foster the pillars of the People's Party platform that stand for fairness, freedom, responsibility, and respect. I will protect a sovereign and free Canada. I will work to exit corrupt entities like the United Nations, WHO, and withdraw from the Paris Accord. I will help all Canadians achieve health, happiness, and prosperity as we have a great country and we need to stand on guard for it. We can no longer afford to elect MPs who are beholden to the same old liberal globalism, which enriches a small group of elite, while leaving the rest of us impoverished and demoralized. Let's come together to strengthen our communities, heal division, create real economies, and a culture of beauty and hope that enriches and inspires all of us, no matter our race, religion, or any other factors. On March 4th, I ask for your vote. Let's step forward with courage to embrace real change and elect a Canada First MP, a local candidate who cares greatly about all people in this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Pranay Gunte for summarization.
Thank you. This debate is an incredible platform to express our opinions and share collective ideas. But today, we did not discuss innovation or technological advancements. We discussed about the affordability of groceries, gas, and houses. And this great country has been run by major political parties for so long. Yet, here we are. Voting for any party in this election is merely an increase or decrease in their representation. An increase in blue suits or increase in red ties. But definitely, as my friend said, we can go for a test drive. We are left with 18 months in this for the next general election. So now we need to send a strong message across Canada. When political parties fail to deliver their promises, we roll up our sleeves and stand for ourselves. I am ready to be that voice that sends out this message. I'm ready to stand for you and stand against the big guys. I'm ready to be dedicated and relentless in advocating to empower Durham. In democracy, vote is powerful. So powerful that it can make our dreams for a brighter, affordable Durham into a reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Qureshi.
Yeah, I'm a structural engineer and an IT infrastructure expert who's been working in this environment for the last 50 years. I retired and now I'm here in front of you. I thought I'll do something which is more productive and more useful, looking after our people. And I've been watching Canada go down from a pinnacle of fame to a position where people are not so very proud of Canada anymore. And the reason is that our streets are full of homeless, we are poor, we are unemployed, we have drugs on our streets, and we have so much more. And we are not worried about it. That's the most important. It is time for us to wake up. We have seen two parties taking turns in governing Canada for the last decades, many decades, with one party maybe helping out. And this is not something that must continue. We have to put a stop to this musical chair game or whatever it is, or whatever you call it. We have to bring in new minds, new brains, new experience, new expertise in to make Canada what it should be. We have the money, we have the power, we have the best land in the world, we have the best resources in the world, we have the best people in the world. We have all the minds from the world that we can use. And all we have, and we are not putting them, and the money, or the people, or the resources to proper use. So for us, from the Centrist Party of Canada, I tell you, please vote us in. One voice in the National Assembly, which is a truthful voice, will be a strong voice, will be a powerful voice, will be your voice, resonant, very resonant, and very powerful. Vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks very much to all of you for stepping forward to try and make a difference. We very much appreciate your time tonight and everything that you have said. And on behalf of everyone at Rogers, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Please remember, March the 4th, go out and vote. It's a democratic privilege. Good night. We're off.
Jamil Giovanni here, your common sense conservative candidate for Durham. I wish I could be there with my friends at Rogers TV, but we're 2 days away from advanced polls opening up, and I'm out in the community letting people know where to vote, how to vote, and when to vote. This is a very important election for the future of Durham and for the future of Canada. Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party is laser focused on axing the tax, building the homes, fixing the budget, and stopping the crime. I hope you'll consider supporting me, Jamil Giovanni, this weekend during advanced polls or on Election Day, March 4th. Let's bring it home.